Ahoy! The PvP server comes with a ton of new weapons, the Conquerors Weapons in particular, which are basically artifacts with very interesting effects, so let's have a look at them and talk about which ones are the most interesting. All of these require you to get a recipe for them first, which is bind on pickup, so that's the step you have to take first. I have another video with instructions for that, but once you get them, these are the perks you're getting. Contagious Infection is a bow with Enfeebling Poison Shot, Disdained Infliction, very interesting to have that locked by default, and Keenly Empowered. But the real big deal here is Contagion. Direct hits with Poison Shot will trigger a vortex, pulling in nearby targets when spawning a 5-meter infected cloud that follows the target for 10 seconds, inflicting all nearby targets with 50% poison damage every second while inside. This sounds extremely interesting. I think this is going to be one of the most sought after just because of how much it does at once. It should be a very fun one. Now, before we get further into the artifacts, if you want to see me try them out live, then check out twitch.tv/SLOTH. I'm going to grind the new PvP world there. And also, if you'd like to support me further and get the early trading tip that I posted just the other day, then feel free to support me on Patreon. The next item is Shaman's Holy Shield. Fortifying Sacred Ground, Refreshing Move, and Blessed. So some pretty nice perks to have in your life stuff already. And then it comes with Holy Shield. Blocking a ranged attack will spawn a bubble shield for 10 seconds at the player's location that will block all projectiles while active, with a 30 seconds cooldown. This bubble shield, I'm pretty sure it's the same one that used to be on a very old version of the live staff, way back in the alpha days, and it was extremely cool back then, so I really hope that this is something that they're testing here and then find a way to put it on an artifact in-game or something, because I really loved that mechanic. Alternatively, you can go with Kite's Holy Shield, which comes with Lifestealing, Refreshing, and Enchanted Ward, and has the same effect otherwise, which I think is particularly interesting because you don't even need to be a support or healer, you just need to have a Kite Shield in your build to utilize this. Could be an SNS build or something as well. The Rapier of Evasive Corruption is part of a larger set that all have the same perk, in this case with Keen Tondo, Rogue, and Abyssal Attunement, and the perk itself is Corrupted Dodge. When dodging through an enemy melee attack, trigger a ball of corruption that explodes, dealing 60% void damage to all targets within 3 meters and causing your next hit within 4 seconds to gain 30% empower on a 6-second cooldown. So this is basically some weird form of a shirking effect. I think it's kind of interesting because it adds a lot of extra damage, but it feels a little bit less cool than some of the other new special effects here, considering if you die once, you're still losing this. The Hatchet version has Refreshing Torrent, Rogue, and Refreshing Move. The Spear version has Enfeebling Skewer, Keen, and Vicious. The bow comes with Enfeebling Poison Shot, Keen, and Vicious. The musket with Accelerating Traps, Disdain Infliction, and Abyssal Attunement, but honestly, I feel like that perk is not really that useful in a musket or bow anyways. You're not close range enough to dodge melee attacks that often. And the Blunderbuss comes with Venturing Clawshot, Flame Attunement, and Plate Crits. Yeeterson's Hammer is one that quite a few of you will have already heard about. This is the one with Sunnery Clearout, Refreshing Move, and Plagued Strikes. And the perk is Yeet, giving you 400% push distance and 30% base damage to all Warhammer knockbacks. So this is Clear Out, which will ignite the first enemy target hit, turning them into a projectile, causing 150% weapon damage to all targets they pass through along their path. Just sounds super fun. Shield of Altruism is a tower shield with shield defense, sturdy, flame shield ward, and enchanted ward, but more importantly, it comes with Altruism. All allies around you gain 50% armor, and you gain 25% increased incoming healing. However, your armor is also reduced by 25%. I think tanks mostly are not going to care about that armor reduction much, they're mainly blocking anyways, but the healing increase is so massive in return that this should be absolutely worth it. Also a bit of a meme reference in the description here with Slap's shield. You can fit so many friends in this thing. I think this is going to be interesting. Also, this is just 500 Wrathstone compared to most of the other weapons being 1000 Wrathstone, so shields are cheaper to craft. Frostborn Aspect is an ice gauntlet with Unending Thaw, Refreshing Move, and Disdain Infliction, and on top of that it has the Frostborn perk. You and all of your allies within 8.5 meters gain 30% fire damage absorption, and base damage of ice attacks is increased by 20%. Hitting targets within the Frost Aura inflicts them with a stacking 5% slow for 3 seconds, with a maximum of 6 stacks. I think this is an extremely interesting weapon. Could, for example, be very cool if you pair it with a melee squad with some players that put ice gems on their weapons, but again, you're probably gonna lose this too fast to gear for it specifically, but especially that slow aura when you hit an enemy is also very cool, just as an additional benefit. The biggest deal to me is the 30% fire damage absorption though. I'm going to assume that does not allow you to overcap. Charred Curtilage is a fire staff that comes with Empowering Fireball, Flame Attunement and Disdain Infliction, so pretty good damage perks here, and then has Charred. Spawn a 8.5 aura around you, 8.5 meter aura around you, that inflicts 20% burn to enemies inside. Hitting targets in the aura will increase the potency of the burn by 5% per stack for 4 seconds with a maximum of 20 stacks. So I think this will mainly work well with Flamethrower because you have to be very close and you want to hit targets in the aura and get a lot of stacks quickly, and I think Flamethrower is the most consistent way to do that. Should be an incredible amount of damage if you can get it off. The Combustion Hatchet might be my favorite one of the bunch. It comes with Empowering Rending Throw, which is not ideal honestly, but Disdain Infliction and Refreshing move along with that, and the perk on it is Combustion. Hitting a target with a ranged hatchet attack will inflict Combustible. At 3 stacks, the next ranged hit will trigger an explosion consuming the stacks and dealing a burst of damage to all targets nearby. It's a typo here, but dealing 250% weapon damage. So not only do you get a massive burst after throwing a few headshots, but it's also an AoE. And I think this should be a super fun weapon. And speaking of fun, there's also the Embiggening. A spear with Keen Volt Kick, Keen and Refreshing moves, so ridiculous crit chance, and it comes with Embiggen. Spear's melee abilities cause you to grow in size to cover more area with the attacks. Your crit damage is increased by 13%, and Vault Kick is extra kicky and knocks down targets. So some very interesting combo potential with Vault Kick here, and also increased crit damage, meaning this could be kind of decent because it's more damage than Vicious for bypassing any mitigations, any crit reductions. So yeah, I'm kind of curious about this one. Obviously it would be nice if it had Vicious on top of that as well, but it should be worth trying out at least, I would say. The Great Axe of Lethargic Infliction is just evil. Refreshing Charge, Plague Crits, and Alacrity's Punishment as the perks. Note that Alacrity's Punishment is normally not a perk on your Great Axe, so that's already interesting in the first place. And then, on top of that, it has Dodge Suppressant. Melee ability hits against a target that is below 50% health will inflict them with Sluggish, preventing them from dodging for 2 seconds or until they hit a target. This has a 20 seconds cooldown per target. That's, I think, the only thing that's holding it back a little bit. But this means that you can do an absolutely brutal engage on someone, just not allowing them to get away in a very crucial moment. If they don't have a mobility ability up at that point, they're probably pretty much dead. Might also be very strong to combo with Execute potentially, because they might not even be able to get away from that either. There's a Warhammer with the same effect, coming with Penetrating Wrecking Ball, Plagued Strikes, and Refreshing Move. But honestly, with a Warhammer, unless you're just light heavying, quick heavying, you're usually not sticking to enemies that well in the first place. So I think compared to a Great Axe, this is going to be less of a threat. But then on the other hand, you can hit pretty hard in those 2 seconds. So who knows, maybe it's enough to set up a Mighty Gavel, for example. You also have the Greatsword option with Relentless Freedom, Transient Strikes, and Refreshing Moves. I don't like Relentless Freedom on weapon, but otherwise same idea, and should generally work well for a Greatsword. This one with split stats, by the way, half strength, half dex. Same thing applies for Crescent's Wave. This one comes with Leeching Crosscut, Transient Strikes, and Refreshing Move. And along with that, you have the Crescent Wave passive, which some of you may also know already. While above 50% health, heavy attacks cast a projectile forward, dealing 50% weapon damage. Each wave costs 20 mana. I think the best weapon to combine this with is Abyss, because you can make use of 2 melee weapons while still being able to reduce your mana. Unfettered Agility is a sword, which, unlike the shields, actually does cost 1000 Wrathstones. You're not getting the discount here. Empowering Whirling Blade, not the greatest perk, Rogue, and Refreshing Move. But Unfettered Agility is interesting. While in light or medium equip load without a shield, dodge cost is reduced by 20% for the first dodge within 1 second after hitting a target. Dodging a melee attack grants 20% haste for 2 seconds and plus 50% slash damage and power for your next attack within 2 seconds. However, you always take 20% more damage. I think the trade-off here is very brutal and probably too much. I think 20% more damage, depending on how exactly it's calculated, just sounds like an insane amount. Especially when the 50% slash damage increase is an empower, so it will probably still hit the cap. But generally the idea of this design of a sword being used without a shield is something that I think is interesting enough to at least want to give this a try out once. But it's, I think, too reliant on dodging to get any of its effects when you always take 20% more damage in return. I think that's just a bit much, and you don't even have shield to block. Appendage's Detriment is a new musket with crippling powder burn, disdain infliction, and flame attunement. Headshots inflict 20% exhaust for 3 seconds. I think that's okay-ish. 20% is pretty solid, and headshots are not that hard to hit, so you can apply it relatively frequently. Also, for 3 seconds after a leg shot, the target will deal 10% of their max health worth of damage to themselves whenever they dodge. I think that one is absolutely terrifying. Don't know what the hitbox for leg shots actually is, how hard or easy it is to hit, but if it's not that hard to hit and you can consistently do this and punish everyone for just dodging a little bit, that would be absolutely brutal. Flailing Shenanigan is obviously a flail, coming with Mending Vortex, Enchanted, and Refreshing Move. The perk here is Plagued Quarrel. Attacks inflict a stack of 5% incoming and 2.5% outgoing disease for 4 seconds with a maximum of 5 stacks. Attacking a blocking target will consume 1 stack, dealing 30% weapon damage for each consumed stack. I don't know what's up with this. This seems really underwhelming compared to most of the other ones. If you think about Meteor Shower being able to apply that until this patch, now it's nerfed, but until just then, for basically just using ability once you're just getting 5% less. With a flail you need 5 stacks, and then the target needs to block in order to deal 30% weapon damage, with flail damage not being very high in the first place. It's not a weapon that has high base damage or anything. Yeah, I don't really see this being particularly good, and it also sounds like you need to stack the stacks while someone's not blocking, so a really weird one. Lost Monarch's Rampage comes with Crippling Reap, Plagued Crits, and Abyssal Attunement. Rampage, hitting a target with a heavy attack will transform you into a hulking Lost Monarch with a 15 seconds cooldown. While transformed, you gain 35% armor for 10 seconds, your abilities trigger a void chain that bounces between close targets and deals 30% weapon damage. It sounds cool, it sounds like a funny effect, but realistically the stat increases aren't even that insane. The armor is nice, but again, armor is not all that you need in New World in terms of total mitigation. And the void chain is cool, let's bring it back an old effect effectively, but you also need to heavy attack in the first place, so yeah, it's alright, but not my favorite. Life support comes with Savior, Mending Protection, and Blessed. No ref move here, and the perk is Life Support. Life Staff outgoing healing is increased by 35% when not affected by any Life Staff heal over time. You also spawn a persistent healing aura around yourself that will persistently heal nearby allies, excluding yourself. When light attacks pass through allies, their stamina and mana regeneration rate is increased by 25% for 3 seconds. Really weird. You kind of have to avoid healing over time, which is odd in the first place. And then the conditions are a bit strange, but it could be good. This is a big question mark to me, how you can use this effectively. Also wondering if Sacred Ground counts as healing over time for this. I think it shouldn't, but not 100% sure. So yeah, depending on that, it may be a little bit better or a little bit worse. Harvester's Retribution comes with Nullifying Oblivion, Disdain Infliction, and Refreshing Move. Very good perks for Void Gauntlet. And the perk is Harvester's Retribution. While using Harvest Essence, deal periodic pulses of damage to all enemies within 5 seconds, dealing 40% base weapon damage and triggering 50% lifesteal based on the damage dealt. So effectively you want to stand in the middle of a clump and pop this and like drain yourself and hope that the enemies heal you for more than you're losing. And I don't know if that's going to work out. It sounds very risky, and you die once you lose it, so that makes it even more risky. But at least it's interesting. It's an interesting concept. Scrambler's Assassination, a rapier, comes with Refreshing Flesh, Disdain Infliction, and Refreshing Move. Scramble. Gain 15% haste while facing a target within 12 meters, and abilities that propel the player forward gain increased movement distance when facing an enemy. So this would be both evade and flesh as far as I can tell. And then at 200 dex, the distance is increased. So you definitely want to use this with 200 dex. So this sounds like it's going to be absolutely terrible to get away from or to chase after. But then I guess you have to face an enemy to get the chase potential here. Or like you have to face an enemy to get the increases. So it's probably likely more so used for aggressive plays. I'm curious how well this will work because obviously sticking power in the rapier is normally relatively low. And this could increase it quite significantly. So could be a cool weapon to try out. All of these weapons come with a 20% base damage increase instead of a gem slot. Swarm's Mighty Barbute is a heavy armor piece. This is from the entire heavy armor set, which comes with Elemental Aversion, Grid Ward, Freedom, and then also with Swarm Defense. When 3 or more enemies are nearby, increase armor by 10% per nearby enemy, but your healing is also reduced by 2% per nearby enemy, up to 10 enemies max. So you could get 100% extra armor for 20% healing reduction, which I think is worth it. I'm unsure if having multiple pieces of the set will apply this effect multiple times. I wouldn't think so, but it's odd that the whole set has the same perk. So on the next piece here we have Sturdy Energy, Health, and Freedom, but otherwise the same perk. The gloves come with Elemental Aversion, Health, and Enchanted Ward. The legs with Elemental Aversion, Health, and Freedom. And the shoes with Elemental Aversion, Health, and Freedom. Now there are also the Ethereal sets, which can drop at, or be crafted at 725, but they all just have perks to get special drops, which allow you to get the Conquerors Weapons. So they don't exactly have some inherent special effect. I hope this overview was interesting and useful to you. I think there's quite a few interesting perks here. If you want to see more videos about the new season, then consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you're notified. If you want to see me stream, then you can check me out on twitch.tv/SLOTH. And if you'd like to support me further, you can do so on Patreon and get early trading tips. Thanks to all of my patrons who already do exactly that. And thank you for watching. SLOTH out.